So what if I told you that the best boundary you're ever going to have is not about putting up walls with other people, but it's really about the boundary that you have with yourself? So often when we talk about boundaries, we think about, oh, we're going to have to say no to other people. But the truth is, the strongest boundary and the most life-changing one is the one you keep with yourself. And that boundary helps us to protect our peace, to honor our needs, and to refuse to ever abandon ourselves again. And again, we're looking at Mel Robbins' best-selling book, The Let Them Theory. Now, the let them theory is really all about boundaries, letting other people do what they're going to do and letting me do what I am going to do. Those are the ultimate boundaries that we can have, but that can often be so hard because as women, maybe women like myself over the age of 50, maybe you've experienced some trauma, either big T or little t trauma in your life. Maybe you've been conditioned by your culture, society, your family. All of these things are wrapped up in why boundaries can be so difficult for us. And I know for me, one of the main reasons is I don't want to disappoint people. I don't want people to not like me. I want to be liked by people. And so instead of setting a boundary, we try and please people. We try and be who other people want us to be. And so for many of us, especially those of us that are healing from trauma and people pleasing, the word boundary can maybe be more complicated than it really is. We may feel like, oh, if we set a boundary, we're being selfish. Or good women don't set boundaries. They always sacrifice. And of course, we want to be a good woman to please everyone. Or maybe if we set a boundary, we feel like we're difficult if we say no. And people don't like difficult women. And for years, you may have believed that boundaries were about pushing people away. But here's the truth. The best boundary isn't about controlling anyone else. It's about keeping yourself safe, steady, and whole. This boundary says, I'm not going to betray myself, even if others don't understand. So today I'm going to offer you 4 different ways that we can look at boundaries. So the first one is what I just talked about. How do we rethink boundaries? And how do we recognize that boundaries are not about pushing people away, but it's about honoring and caring for ourselves? Okay, so that's the first one. The next thing that we're going to talk about is why boundaries are so hard. Have you ever felt like setting a boundary in your life was hard? If you have, go ahead and put that in the comments. I'd love to know what you're thinking about, how that's been hard for you. So that's number 2. The third thing that we're going to talk about is what the best boundary looks like. And then we're going to go on to how do we strengthen those boundaries? So those are the things that we're going to talk about today. So if this feels hard, this thought of setting boundaries feels hard, it's not your fault. There are many reasons that we as women struggle with boundaries, with holding boundaries with other people and with ourselves. And the first reason that we may have trouble holding boundaries is because of trauma conditioning. Now, when I talk about trauma conditioning, it doesn't necessarily mean that you had, big T traumas in your life, in your childhood. We often, many of us, if not all of us, have little T traumas in our life too. So maybe, your home was kind of chaotic, or for other reasons, maybe you had parents that while they were good parents, they weren't always there for you. Maybe you did have some big T traumas where you had a lot of chaos and abuse in your life. Well, all of these things can be trauma conditioning. And what the trauma conditioning tells us is that our needs aren't as important. When we get those signals from our self, from our body, we ignore those. because to stay safe, the needs of everyone else around us are more important than our own needs. And so we have pushed down what we need, and therefore it's hard then as adults to say, oh, this is what I need. This is what I need to set a boundary for. This is how I choose or how I want to be treated. So trauma conditioning can be a big reason why we have trouble with boundaries. And the second reason is people-pleasing patterns. Now, I just touched on that a little bit ago, but when we grew up in chaos or big T or little t traumas, the way that we stay safe is to people please. Now, another term for this is fawning. And fawning is one of our trauma responses that we have. And maybe you've heard about this. Maybe you've heard of the fight, flight, freeze. And the fourth one, which is a little newer, is fawning. And that's basically people pleasing. So we have trouble setting boundaries as adult women because we feel like we need to take care of everyone else. We need to keep everyone happy. We need to please other people. And this affects us with our boundaries because we feel like in order to keep the peace, to not have conflict, we need to silence our own needs. And as children, maybe as young women, we did this over and over and over again. And that's created a pattern within us, within our brains, that causes us to not set boundaries, to not say what we need, what's important to us. And the third reason that boundaries can be so difficult is because of our cultural or religious upbringing. So in culture and in religion, we may have been sent powerful messages that say, you know, good women don't say no, or your role is to serve, again, to serve, to please other people. And oftentimes we are taught that protecting ourselves is wrong, that we need to just be there for everyone else and to not honor and care for our own needs and our own wants. So those are some powerful ways that boundaries can be difficult for us, especially for us women and women in the second half of life, because we've often been conditioned with all of these different things. And over time, then, what happens is that actually creates a deep distrust of our own needs. We actually, kind of do that to ourselves because of this conditioning, because of these patterns that we've learned over years and decades. And so we abandon ourselves. We abandon ourselves and our own needs in order to be who other people want us to be. That sound familiar? Have you ever done that? I know I have. And so in this next part, we're going to look at what a healthy boundary actually looks like. Now, overcoming this, again, because these are patterns that we have had for years and decades. I am not saying that overcoming this is easy or quick, but here are some places that you can start. And really the first way to start is just recognizing these patterns that you've had over the years and recognizing also that, it's time now to start honoring yourself. I like to say, especially for us women that are over 50 and maybe into our 60s or 70s, if not now, when? When are we going to start doing this? So now is the time to think about these things and to start honoring yourself and your needs. Okay, so what does this look like? What can we do? Well, there are actually many things we can do, and I'm just going to share a few simple ones with you today. So we can say yes to ourselves before we say yes to others. And I know with my coaching clients, I tell them it should be at least 50-50 that you take care of your own needs as opposed to taking care of others' needs. And another very important thing we can do is to listen to our body. Our body has so much wisdom, and for years, we really ignore our bodies. So don't override those feelings. If you feel tired, if you feel like you need to rest, or you're hungry, or whatever your body is telling you that you need to do, honor that, listen to it, and do that. Because there's so much wisdom in your body. And we need to start listening to ourselves, to that inner wisdom, rather than listening to the outside world. And another thing that we can do is not only check in with our body, but also check in with that inner voice. And this is often about just pausing and recognizing what's going on with us rather than just going fast, fast, fast and doing all of these things. So checking in with our body and with our inner voice. And so what does that look like? Well, we can ask ourselves, what do they want me to do? So if someone has a request of us, someone wants us to do something, we can look at what that is and then check in with our body, with our inner self, and say, does that feel right to me? That's okay to do that, to figure out what feels right for you. Another thing that we can do is to recognize that because these patterns have developed over years and decades, we will get triggered again. Now, when we try and have these boundaries in our life, we're going to get triggered, and it's hard. And so when that happens, just to recognize that, to recognize these are old patterns, and you're trying to now change these old patterns. It's just like building a muscle. If you go to the gym and you work out, you might be sore the next day. It's not easy to do. So recognize if you get triggered, if this is difficult for you to do, if you start shaming or blaming yourself, be compassionate with yourself. This is simply part of the process. This is not something, again, that happens overnight. It's going to take a long time, and you will be triggered along the way. That's okay. Recognize it as part of the change, and be compassionate and loving with yourself rather than judging yourself and blaming and shaming yourself. And so this boundary setting really is less about saying no to others, and it's really more about saying yes to yourself, not abandoning yourself, and actually coming home to yourself. And now let me share some ways that you can strengthen these boundaries with yourself. So how about micro honesty? Okay, so start telling yourself the truth about what you want and what you need, even if you're not ready to act on it. So even small things, just start recognizing. You don't have to act on it right away, but recognizing, being aware of it is so important. And that's a good way to reinforce these boundaries that you're starting to set with yourself and with others. Next, you can practice small acts of self-respect. Now, last one was micro, this one is small. There's kind of a theme here. This doesn't happen overnight. It's okay to take very tiny steps. You are making progress by taking tiny steps. You don't have to do it all in one day, okay? So we can practice small acts of self-respect. And this is about learning to trust ourselves. So every time that you keep a promise to yourself, so when you hear that inner voice, when your body is telling you something, maybe you need to sit down and do some journaling. Maybe you need to do some meditation or take a walk. Maybe you just need a drink of water, or you need to sit down and rest. When you are hearing those messages from yourself and you do that and you honor yourself, then you are telling yourself, oh, I can trust me. I can do these things for myself. I can honor my needs. And that's a way that you're setting boundaries with yourself, because you're doing what is good for you. Another thing that we can do is to redefine what the word good means. So what is a good woman? Is it really a woman that sacrifices herself for everyone else? Maybe we can redefine that word and say a good woman is one who is authentic and teaches other people to do the same. Because the reality is you are modeling these habits, these skills to other people, maybe to other young people in your life. You are helping them be able to set boundaries for themselves and to love and honor themselves. And the reality is, when we are authentic in who we are and when we are meeting our needs, our relationships are going to be better. And another thing we can do, and again, these are just a few, there are many, many different things you can do, but I think these are some good ones to help you get started. So we can release that shame spiral, okay? We talked about triggers a little bit and to not be shamed by our triggers. So this is part of that. So when you struggle with you slip into old habits, old patterns, you say yes when you really want to say no, don't shame yourself for that. Have compassion. And you can tell yourself, I'm practicing a new way, but I am still safe with me. So again, that self-compassion is so important. And recognizing you are practicing a new skill. Think about if someone is learning to play the piano. They do not sit down and play Chopin the very first day. We talk about how we have to practice playing the piano, and that's what you're doing too. You are practicing building these new skills, and it will happen, but it takes time, and so be gentle and compassionate with yourself. Okay, let me leave you with this. The best boundary you are ever going to have is the one you set with yourself and the one you hold with yourself. And this boundary says, I will not abandon myself anymore. These are powerful statements that you can repeat. This boundary also says, I will honor my voice even if it shakes. And again, that's okay. You're practicing. You don't need to quit just because it's scary. You can also say, I will give myself the same compassion I've given to everyone else. So imagine what your life would look like if you kept this promise to yourself every single day. Think about that. What would that be like for you? You are worthy of your own protection and you are worthy of your own care. You are worthy of a boundary that says, I will never leave myself behind again. And you can do this. I know this is a journey I am working on, and I work on it every day. But every day I get a step closer and a step closer, and you can too. Thanks so much for spending this time with me today. I'm Kathy Wiens, and through my coaching business, I help women heal from trauma and overcome people-pleasing, and most important, step into their true power. If you'd like to learn more about working with me, please visit my website at katherinebwiens.com, or you can reach out directly through my email at kathy@katherinebwiens.com. And if this video was helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Share it with someone who might need these words of encouragement today. All right, thanks so much for being here today. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, healing and freedom are possible for you. All right, bye-bye.